the brief transition between Entropy and Extus, I was hoping that I would get Godzilla and Anguirus back. As the board appeared, I saw that my wishes were half granted. I got Godzilla back, but no Anguirus. I would have preferred both, but despite Anguirus' neat abilities, I would have chosen Godzilla if I had to pick between the two. Extus had two different colored temples, white and pink, a pyramid, what looked like some modern buildings, and two other icons I couldn't figure out at the time. The new boss monsters were Kamunga, Gorosaurus, and not Ghidorah, whom I was dreading to see, let alone fight. With Godzilla back, I was eager to explore, yet still cautious. I went to the quiz level first. This time, Face's questions were a lot more random than ever. Do elephants breathe? Yes. Weird face number 2. Have you ever been by a family member? No. Weird face number 6. Have you ever anyone? No. Weird face number 8. Is green your favorite color? No. Weird face number 10. Is the computer the pinnacle of modern technology? Yes. Weird face number 4. Are you a tough guy? Yes. Weird face number 12. Can you fly? No. Weird face number 9. Can you stand on your head? Yes. Weird face number 7. Do you hate raccoons? No. Reaction confused. Do you feel blame? No. Weird face number 11. Would you like a new monster? Yes. Reaction surprise. Will you miss me? Yes. Reaction sad. I was happy that I was getting a new monster, but that last question really bothered me. Will you miss me? Is Face referring to when I finish the game? I thought. Since the revelation of the game's truly otherworldly nature, I wasn't sure what to think of Face or anything in this game. But something about that last statement gave me a genuine feeling of sadness for Face. As I was thinking about this, the game had gone back to the board, and I had a new monster, but I had no idea who it was supposed to be. The sprite had a slight resemblance to Rodan, but the head was totally off. I moved this mysterious newcomer to a white temple icon. When I started the level, the screen appeared with the text, "Find the gem," presumably instructions on beating the level. After that, I got my first look at my new playable monster. A dark blue, hairy creature with bat wings and a skull-like face named Solomon. I also found that my path was blocked by a beam of light and a small pillar with a plate on it. I figured that the beam of light was blocking the exit, so I had to find the gem and put it on the plate to deactivate the beam. How exactly I was going to do that, I didn't know. There wasn't anything in the original game requiring you to find an item to beat the level. I'd have to find the way out when I obtained the gem. The only direction I had to go was left, so I proceeded onward. Solomon was an interesting monster, to say the least. He was capable of both fighting and of heat beam, both of which proved very useful. He also had a kick and a slash with his wings, but he couldn't duck. The White Temple was a vocalizing choir, or a video game approximation of such. It's hard to describe, but it sounded very holy. It wasn't long until I started running into waves of strange and new enemies. They did little to stop me, and I ran past them while slashing and didn't take any damage. There was a pause between each wave. After you killed about 10, there wouldn't be any for about a minute, and then the next wave would appear. After about 5 minutes, I noticed holes in the ceiling and floor. Guillotine-mouthed creatures would rapidly fly up and down these crevices, so I had to take my jumps carefully because I didn't know if I'd get another shot at this. Luckily, I managed to make it through without a scratch. I'm just lucky, I guess. After that, I found myself at the end of a hallway facing some sort of mini-boss monster. It moved fast and had a kind of projectile that was shot in 4 directions, but I killed it quite easily using Solomon's heat beam. When the battle was over, I had my gem, which was inside the creature's head. I found that I could pick up and hold the gem by walking over it and holding down B. I made the long trek back, deposited the gem on the plate, which deactivated the beam like I thought. I left the stage and was shown probably the strangest quirk relating to Solomon. Every time I completed a stage or defeated a boss with Solomon, the screen would appear. I have no idea what Still the Best 1973 means, but the date nor the phrase means anything to me. I spent a lot of time thinking about it. The next level I played was one I like to call the Bronze Pyramids. I used Godzilla and found out he had leveled up to 12 since I last played him in Dementia. The Bronze Pyramids were fairly normal as far as levels go, but the visuals were quite interesting. Almost unusually colorful and lively. The music had a fittingly Egyptian style to it. It was slow and mysterious sounding. I strolled through the levels fighting off various enemies. None were too difficult, although the ants could be a pain if you ran into too many of them at once. My favorite enemy was the giant reptile I encountered halfway through. At the end of the level, I came across a giant pyramid and engaged in another mini boss fight. Although this one was a bit different because I had to fight two monsters at the same time. Individually, I could have dealt with them easily, but fighting both of them at once was challenging. I sped things up by tricking one of the twin beasts into barbecuing his brother by jumping when he uses flame breath. After defeating the twin monster, I noticed something strange after returning to the board. I was now able to move my monster piece anywhere on the board without limits. Normally Godzilla could only move up to 3 spaces each turn, and Mothra could move up to 5. I wanted to try out Solomon some more, so I moved his piece to one of the brown pillar icons. When I got to the level, I realized what the level icon was representing. Totem poles. I was greeted by 2 of them right at the beginning. The music had a Native American sound to it. It seemed to be using the same instruments as the Entropy Forest did. It was just as foreboding. I walked around for 3 minutes with nothing else in sight besides the totem poles. I didn't realize it until then, but I wasn't expecting another level where nothing alive was in it. After all the activity and entropy at least. Walking by these multicolored faces, this unnerving level left me feeling like I was being watched. After about only 10 minutes of starting Extus, I was already halfway through it. After getting back from the totem pole level, I tried out one of the TV screens just to see how strange they were, and I got this. Even more strange than before, apparently. The music for this was Uranus's theme. I switched back to Godzilla to play another level, and this time it was quite a surprise. It was a normal-looking city level. The colors were gloomy, but still, this was a shock. This was a kind of level I would expect in a Godzilla game, and I was kind of mad that we didn't get to play it earlier. The music was the Earth theme. I found it strange that a level fitting a Godzilla game would show up this late, but there's no point in crying over spilled milk, I supposed. I moved Solomon over to the grayish icon, which turned out to be a giant high-tech laboratory of some sort. Loads of mechanical drones in this level, but Solomon cleared through them just like the White Temple enemies. There was a strange flying cyborg enemy, which was annoying because it would always fly away whenever you jumped to attack it. Also of interest were these large stasis tanks that would hold some kind of monster in it. As you would guess, sometimes the monsters would awaken and shatter through the glass. I tried to get past the stasis tanks as fast as I could, because the monsters inside proved to be quite vicious little bastards upon release. At the end of the level, there was an elevator which I used to go down to the bottom level, where the exit was. Along the way, I was getting shot at by security drones. I couldn't leave the elevator, so my only defense was the heat beam. The last level type was a simple thing I called the Heart Temple for obvious reasons. Nothing but a large hallway filled with floating enemies shaped like human hearts. They were incapable of causing you damage, so all you had to do was run through the level and smash as many of them as you could to get all power-ups. One run through these levels would get your life meter back up to full, and I would greatly appreciate these levels later. The Heart Temple's music reminded me of a circus tune. It had an overly cheerful theme to it, which gave the level a really weird feeling. Having seen all the level types, I chose to fight Gorosaurus with using Solomon. The music for this fight was Gazora's theme. It was during the fight that I realized that Solomon is really overpowered. A single well-aimed slash could take down as many as 4 of the enemy's life bars. Due to this, the fight was over quickly, and since Gorosaurus had no projectile attack or anything that could match Solomon's deadly claws, but I kept the fight going just long enough to see if Gorosaurus would use his iconic kangaroo kick, and I was greatly pleased when he did. Even though I knew Solomon was my fighting ace, I used Godzilla to battle Kumonga, just for variety's sake. I briefly considered using Mothra, but of course Godzilla won out. Kumonga was a very simple opponent, no heat beam or anything. He attacked by jumping on you and stabbing you with his mandibles. He also uses his signature webbing stream to paralyze you. Once you get webbed, Kumonga will sometimes take the opportunity to attack, but mostly it's a way to buy some time, like Gazora backing you into the corner. His music was Hedorah's theme. With Gorosaurus and Kumonga defeated, I was at the end of Extus already. But before I fought not Ghidorah, there was something I had to do. I wasn't expecting much from it, but for documentation's sake, I took a look at the other TV screen. This is what it was. I don't think there was much reason behind the TV screens. If I were to guess, I'd say it's some sort of random uncontrollable manifestation of the cartridge's abilities. Or maybe it all makes perfect sense in the game. Who knows? Anyway, Mr. Fawcett's theme was the Saturn music. It was time for the opponent I was dreading, not Ghidorah. Although I had gained some courage with Solomon's combat abilities, I was still nervous. And when I started the fight, I was extremely confused. My opponent was not Ghidorah. I defeated the imposter with a few strikes, then not Mogira showed up. Then it started to make sense. In order to face not Ghidorah, I had to fight all the previous replacement monsters first. So battle them I did. I tore my way through them until I finally made it to not Ghidorah, who was a door rat. Once I stopped laughing, I destroyed him with only 2 slashes. But then the music stopped, and I thought I was going back to the board, but the battle wasn't over yet. The real fight was against the Chimera, a monstrous hybrid of all the replacement monsters. This was by far the most difficult boss yet. Every attack of his would cut through your life bar like butter, while attacks against him were greatly weakened. Solomon's slashes, for example, were now lucky to take at least half of a life bar. During this battle, I gained a great appreciation for 2 things: the battle time limit and the Heart Temple. Had it not been for those things, I would have never beaten this boss. To take down this behemoth, I came up with a strategy. I would switch between Godzilla and Solomon. As one began to get dangerously low on health, I would take him through the Heart Temple while fighting the Chimera with another. I should count my blessings that the Chimera couldn't regain lost health. A very interesting thing about Chimera was that the colored section of his life bar corresponded to his different body parts, so each body part effectively had its own life meter. The head was invincible as long as the other parts were present. In addition to being difficult, it was also the longest fight so far. I tried to remember how many times I've gotten taken out of the fight because of the timer, and I lost count around 13. Eventually I destroyed all the components but the head, which now flew around at incredible speed. Chimera fought well, but I was extremely determined, and once he was reduced to a head, he no longer had the power to defeat Solomon, and I heat-beamed him into oblivion. I was exhausted after that fight, and worried that it might affect my performance in the end chase level. The headquarters icon was replaced with not the Hellbeast face, but instead a crucifix. I was completely stunned. I wasn't exactly excited about seeing the Hellbeast icon again. But if there was one good thing about those levels, it was that they were predictable. I had a basic idea of what to expect. But now, here I was at the end with a completely different icon. What did it mean? And why a crucifix? It made me very uneasy. I attempted to start the level with Solomon, but I couldn't. I got the notice that simply stated, Solomon can't enter here. It didn't say why, but I think it might have something to do with Solomon's demonic appearance. Since Solomon was out of the question, I went with Godzilla instead. Once I started the level, the crucifix made sense. It was a graveyard. I was still on edge thinking that it was some kind of trick. The last level had always involved running away from the demonic beast, and I wasn't going to get fooled into thinking there would be anything different. So I started running. But after a minute without interruption, I slowed down. It was during this that the music had caught my attention. I knew it sounded familiar when I first heard it, but it took me a while to realize it was an 8-bit rendition of Prayer for Peace from the first Godzilla film. A very sad yet powerful song, even in this form. At about 2 minutes in, I encountered something that I wasn't sure how to react to. My first instinct was to run, but this blue statuesque being simply floated in place. I felt compelled just to stare at it for a time. Since this was a graveyard and it was floating above a chapel, I guessed it had to have been some kind of angel watching over the deceased. It gave me a strange but warm feeling. I wouldn't say happy, but I felt like I was at peace. I had never seen anything like this before, yet it seemed very familiar to me. Just as I was about to leave, the Hellbeast appeared, and its presence warped music into a terrifying, distorted screeching sound and transformed the level, desecrating tombstones as a new ground appeared, comprised of blood-soaked bodies. I could feel my heart now beating out of control. I had no chance to escape with the monster that close. It lunged for the kill, but the angel got in its way. The demon roared and started clawing through the angel's legs, and tears of blood streamed through its eyes. I wanted to save the angel, but there was nothing I could do. I had to honor its sacrifice and run. And so, I ran through the hellish landscape as fast as I could. The beast caught up soon after, still swallowing the body of the angel, whose legs had been torn off. The sight of it made my terror change to anger. I now found myself hating this horrible monster. There was no doubt in my mind that it was pure evil, and I wanted it to die. When I got to the end, I remembered how it responded to my insult in trance. I spoke to it and said, "You're going to pay for this." This was its response. I had no idea how I would follow up with that threat, but nothing could have prepared me for the horrors of the final world. Zenith.